Tonight's 2024 TV schedule's most recent episode of NCIS Origins presented a rather straightforward case of the week. On the side of the road close to Camp Pendleton, where she had been residing with her son, a naval officer, and his spouse, an old woman suffering from dementia, was discovered dead. Randy Randolph, Mike Franks, Lala Domings, and Leroy Jethro Gibbs finally discovered that the daughter-in-law had murdered her by mistake during a fight, then dumped the body at the embankment to make it appear as though she had been the victim of a heist gone wrong. Additionally, this was the first time Gibbs had the opportunity to actually participate in an interrogation, a skill that would eventually be a crucial component of his law enforcement toolkit. The way that Gibbs and Franks initially met was where One Flew Over truly excelled. We saw via these flashbacks that Austin Stowell and Kyle Schmidt's characters didn't get along when they first met. A mystery that was hinted at in the premiere of Origins was also resolved, though I wouldn't be shocked if it were to reappear later this season. Years ago, when Mark Harmon and Muse Watson were portraying Gibbs and Mike Franks, the circumstances behind their meeting were examined on NCIS. Nevertheless, One Flew Over provided a refresher for viewers of Origins who had never seen the original program. After discovering that his wife and daughter had been slain, Gibbs purposefully walked into enemy fire in All's Not Lost last month. At the conclusion of Last Rites, viewers watched him emerge from his coma. Gibbs eventually returned to the United States in the flashbacks in One Flew Over, but he rented the apartment where he was living during Origins' present-day events because it was too difficult to dwell in the house he had previously occupied with Shannon and Kelly. Gibbs was discovered in the apartment by Mike Franks, the primary investigator into the murders of Shannon and Kelly, who then led him to the parking lot where the vehicle in which they perished was stored. According to Franks, Shannon saw Pedro Hernandez, a drug dealer for the Reynosa cartel, murder a Marine at an Oceanside gas station. In order to keep Shannon and Kelly safe, until Shannon could testify, a NCIS agent was ordered to drive them to a safe house. However, Hernandez shot the agent en route, and Gibbs' first wife and daughter perished in the collision. After that, Hernandez managed to escape to Mexico, which made it much more difficult for American officials to capture him. Gibbs would not stop calling him or visiting the NCIS office in Camp Pendleton, even after Mike Franks informed him that he had no clue where Pedro Hernandez was. The disagreement escalated to the point that Franks came back to Gibbs' apartment and tore the phone from his hands. Gibbs then punched Franks, who then put the former in a headlock. Mike Franks chose to break the law by driving Gibbs to NCIS, leaving the case file for the murders of Shannon and Kelly on his desk, and then claiming he had to take a leak while Gibbs was standing next to the desk unattended after seeing how much Gibbs was suffering. Gibbs was able to write down some notes regarding Pedro Hernandez and the murder in a matter of minutes, completing as Franks came back. In the final narration of the show, Mark Harmon's elder Gibbs explained what Franks had done for him as follows. Leroy Jethro Gibbs finally finds Pedro Hernandez and murders him, as we discovered in NCIS, and we now know how he began his quest for vengeance because of NCIS Origins. All that appears to be left to depict, if these Gibbs-centric Origins flashbacks persist, is Gibbs murdering Hernandez and then Franks enlisting him in NCIS. We first meet Mike Franks' girlfriend Tish, played by Tonantzin Carmillo, in the two-part NCIS Origins opening, Enter Sandman. It was evident that Trish was coping with some sort of trauma when Franks returned home at the conclusion of Part 1 to find her sobbing in the shower. Then, at the conclusion of Part 2, Diane Rodriguez's character Vera Strickland gave her ex-partner Franks the confidential psychological profile he had asked for. As it happens, the two were related. Lala Domings visited Franks and Tish's house one evening during One Flew Over to get Tish's hair trimmed. Following that, Tish gave Lala the mental profile she had discovered while cleaning the home. Lala concluded it was one of Vera's, but assumed it was an example she had created while she was presenting her psych profiling program to NCIS Special Agent in charge Cliff Wheeler. Given that the profile described a lady who was raped in a parking garage, Lala's remark just strengthened Tish's suspicions that it was about her. When Franks arrived home, Tish confronted him about it, telling him that she had urged him to stop because she didn't want to provide her rapist any more mental strength. Tish offered him an ultimatum, drop it, for real this time, and he complied. Franks revealed that he came up with the plan because he was frustrated that the FBI hadn't found the individual who had sexually attacked her. Nevertheless, given the nature of these TV series, I'd be shocked if this horrific incident wasn't brought up again in NCIS Origins, either because Franks retracts his statements or because the attacker is somehow linked to a subsequent case. When Muse Watson's older version of Tish appears on NCIS, it can start a chain of events that explains why Tish is no longer in Frank's life. CBS broadcasts new NCIS Origins episodes every Monday at 10 p.m. ET, immediately after NCIS Season 22 episodes. With a Paramount subscription, you can also view the prequel and every other program in the procedural franchise.